It's Monday, January 30th. I'm Tre'vell Anderson.
And I'm Josie Duffy Rice, and this is What a Day. On today's show, violence continues in Israel and the occupied West Bank. Plus, Damar Hamlin spoke publicly for the first time since he collapsed during a Monday night football game.
But first, an update on the story out of Memphis, where 5 officers have been charged with second-degree murder, assault, and kidnapping in the death of Tyre Nichols. Picking up where we left the story on Friday, the Memphis Police Department has released video footage of the traffic stop, beating, and other events that led to Tyre's death. They did that Friday night, and throughout the weekend, there have been protests nationwide. In Memphis, of course, but also in New York City, Boston, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Seattle, and Detroit, among others. Now, we won't be detailing the events of the video footage. Both the videos themselves and various descriptions of the violence Tyre endured is out there if that's what you're looking for. And we're going to chat in a couple minutes about the choice to, watch or not watch the video. But before we do that, I want to emphasize that most of the demonstrations that happened over the weekend were peaceful ones, even though to me, many of the calls for peace in advance of the video footage's release were absurd and not a logical request considering the severity, of the violence that they all mentioned. This came from the Memphis police chief as well as President Biden. They kind of made it seem like we couldn't imagine, the severity of what was caught on tape when obviously we've seen so many tapes of police doing the opposite of protecting and serving and instead brutalizing people. And so, many cities were bracing for these massive disruptions and massive demonstrations that, just didn't happen.
Right. It feels like there was a lot of apprehension, but then things went peacefully this weekend. These situations always lead to a lot of discourse about police reform and how they're going to change this one thing and everything will be different. Mm-hmm. Is that happening here? What are elected officials saying? Tell us what the plan is for going forward.
Yeah, so on the national level, the Congressional Black Caucus released a statement saying they want to meet with President Biden this week to address, quote, the public health epidemic of police violence. They're hoping that the tapes will, make this a nonpartisan issue as they discuss it in the various chambers. And then on the state level, a pair of Democratic lawmakers in Tennessee have said they will file police reform legislation ahead of the state's General Assembly's filing deadline on Tuesday. The bills will seek to address mental health care for law enforcement officers, hiring, training, discipline practices, and other topics. That's according to Representatives G.A. Hardaway and Joe Towns Jr., who both represent portions of Memphis. And then on the local level, one of the big headlines of the weekend was the disbanding of the Scorpion unit, which, Josie, you're going to tell us about.
Yes, I am going to talk about the Scorpion unit. I do want to just say that I do find it interesting that when something like this happens, the answer is always invest more into policing. Mm-hmm. I think getting mental health care for law enforcement, love mental health care, love to see it. But it does feel like a strange response, right? That the answer to something like this is more money into policing, more resources into policing when we see what policing has wrought. Mm-hmm. But yes, let's talk about the Scorpion unit. All 5 police officers accused of murdering Tyre Nichols were part of the Scorpion unit, which stands for Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. Really feels like they're stretching with that acronym, but, Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The unit was started just over a year ago to address, you guessed it, quote unquote, street crime. It was a strategy of Chief of Police C.J. Davis, who came into the department in 2021 and pledged to be tougher on crime. On Saturday, though, Chief Davis announced the unit would be disbanded due to the killing of Tyre Nichols.
It's always interesting to me when we talk about these special units because they always have some sort of name that is supposed to invoke fear, right? Such as Scorpion. But then it's an acronym for Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods.
Right.
I never think of a scorpion when I think of something peaceful.
Right.
But, what do I know? Josie, Can you tell us exactly what the Scorpion unit did?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I just think that's a really good point. And it really kind of embodies, the problem with policing in America. It's it wants to be both the military while it's telling you that it is like a peace circle. And
Yeah.
you can't do both of those things, right? It would really almost be funny if it weren't for the situation that the Scorpion Unit, the P stands for peace, right? But about what the Scorpion Unit did, according to the New York Times, it was, quote, a 40-officer group that would deploy in neighborhoods with a focus on crime hotspots. The police in that unit often, quote, operated in unmarked vehicles, making traffic stops, seizing weapons, and conducting hundreds of arrests. And according to CBS, they wore black hoodies and tactical black vests with police emblazoned across the front and back, and drove dark-colored Dodge Chargers marked with a scorpion seal. So we'll get to this in a second, but worth noting that when she started the unit, Chief Davis really endorsed this kind of like tough on crime approach, right? Saying we all have that understanding about being tough on tough people. And when I read this thing about the Scorpion Unit, I was kind of confused, honestly, because it's been discussed as this really specialized policing unit, kind of groundbreaking. But it doesn't seem like that's the case, right? This unit seems to be recycling failed policing tactics that we've seen for decades, truly, in countless cities and countless places. The description of the hotspots, using traffic stops as a kind of pretext search tool, increasing arrests, like that's basically just broken windows policing. It's not a new idea. And of course, they say like, oh, this is different. It's data-driven. This is X policing or Y style or acronym, Z. But like, this is the thing. Police departments often put new names on this same old thing. And they like to pretend that they've never tried the tough on crime approach, which is literally all they've tried. So it's hard to take the idea of this unit as like good in theory or well-intentioned because it doesn't feel like that.
And so it then makes so many of these initiatives feel more like a PR move, right? And a way of basically giving officers carte blanche to be aggressive and wreak havoc on the local communities.
Right. I think that's totally, totally right. Like the chief and the mayor talked about Scorpion a lot, like in the State of the City address to the media just a few days before Tyre Nichols was killed. There was a report in local media about how the Scorpion unit had recovered 170 grams of marijuana. And so it really does feel like it was kind of a PR move. Like you said, it doesn't feel like these were the best and the brightest or the most experienced or that they had some sort of particularly specialized training. It seems like they were aggressive. They weren't afraid to make a questionable stop. They weren't afraid to push the boundaries of policing. And we know exactly where that got us, right? In fact, Hunter Dempster, an organizer with Decarcerate Memphis, told the New York Times that he had long been sounding the alarm on the Scorpion unit in particular, and that many people in his community were especially worried about those officers, right? If you get pulled over, you know that there's potential for violence, he said. That's how terrified the general public is of these units. And so that's a reminder that in some ways this result, while absolutely heinous, is like not actually surprising, which gets to your earlier point. It just doesn't surprise us.
Yeah.
So, Travell, there's been a lot happening around this incident, and that's in addition to the fact that obviously a person is dead and was murdered at the hands of cops. So talk to us about, how you're feeling, how the past few days have been.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of conversation, right, about do you watch the video, do you not watch the videos?
Right.
It's a collection of videos that they released, right, of like different angles and different segments of the events that eventually led to Tyre's death. I watched one of them. I watched a couple seconds. I scanned through a video just to get the highlights. Because as we mentioned, we've seen videos like this before. I don't really personally need to see the actual violence to know what policing brings us.
Right.
I feel like my entire adult life, I've been seeing videos or hearing recordings of police or people who act like police brutalizing folks. And so it's been interesting to see that discourse. I know you didn't watch.
Right.
I would love to hear why from your vantage point.
I didn't watch it. I don't think I've watched one of these videos since the Walter Scott video, which was 2015. That's just kind of my rule at this point. I think that for a long time, nobody saw this stuff. They just heard it and they thought people were lying or they were exaggerating. And so the fact that these videos exist in many ways is important. And also, if you know that this is a thing, if you know that this is the story of American policing, which it is, by the way, from the beginning of American policing, this is the story of American policing. They haven't taken a day off, right? If you know that, then I don't think you have to watch. Those videos are important for people who don't know that and don't believe that, right? I don't think that either of us have to see how bad it is to know how bad it is.
Absolutely.
And that's a really tough line to walk.
Absolutely. And then I also think about, We already mentioned some of the elected officials coming up with these ideas and these bills that basically will pump more money into policing. And we know that, right, more resources, more training, more money has not solved the issue of policing. Having greater diversity on police forces has not solved the issue, right? All of the officers involved in this case are Black folks. The police chief is a Black woman, you know? And yet we are still seeing this type of violence. And it's not just Memphis. It's in cities, right, across the country where the resources have gone up for police departments and the violence they enact on our communities has not gone down. And so it's been interesting to see, you know, a lot more conversation even just this week around abolition, what that could possibly look like, and how to go about just thinking differently about what safety in our communities looks like.
Right. Like, I think a lot of the solutions are controversial to people, and that we often get caught up in, like, could abolition work? Could defund work? And that's a fair conversation. These are fairly new ideas, kind of widespread ideas. They've existed for a long time, but they're kind of new to the public. And so I understand why they feel overwhelming. I think what we've seen in the past few years, right, is that people understand that this is not going to be solved with a policy change. It's not going to be solved by shutting down the Scorpion unit. It's not going to be solved with body cameras. It's not going to be solved with ending no-knock warrants. Like, those are all kind of not unimportant, but separate from the actual issue is that the culture of policing in this country is brutal. Policing in this country is brutal. And for every single Tyre Nichols, there are ones we don't hear about. There are people that die in darkness. And so it's just a reminder that what we're talking about here is something much deeper than disband the unit, something much deeper than the police chief or Memphis or these 5 people. It is a much bigger question of, like, what does this job do to people?
Yeah.
Is that the structure we want being in charge of our quote-unquote public safety?
Yeah. We will, of course, be following this story as it continues to develop. In the meantime, we're going to take a short break for some ads.
What a Day is brought to you by Books. When your significant other says, you don't have to get me anything for Valentine's Day, it doesn't mean don't get me anything. Trust us.
It always means get something.
Right.
But just don't make a big deal out of it, you know?
Right. And also, I feel like that should go for every month. Get me something every month.
Absolutely. Not just on this special holiday. Right. Every single month.
Right. Black History Month present.
Black History Month, Women's History Month. There's so many months coming up.
There's so many months
that you can be getting something.
The solstice. What's the other one?
Everything. When Mercury goes into retrograde again, since it always likes to do that.
Right.
Get me something, okay?
Please.
Consider surprising them with farm fresh flowers from Bouqs. That's short for bouquets. And we're going to save you 25% off your entire Bouqs purchase with the code WAD. Bouqs is different from other flower delivery services. Their sustainably grown flowers are cut fresh and sourced directly from the best farms, so they last way longer. It's not just for the roses either. Bouqs has a huge selection of unique designs you'll never find on those other sites. They even have flowers grown from the side of a volcano.
Okay, I have a ton of questions that I am going to find out on their website about this volcano situation, but you should order Bouqs now because after the big game, it's too late. And while you're at it, sign up for their flower subscription and be the hero all year long. Go to Bouqs.com and use promo code WAD for 25% off. That's BOUQS.com, promo code WAD.
What A Day is also brought to you by Lomi. Composting is a great way to help the environment, but it's not as easy as it sounds, especially if you don't have the space.
That is where Lomi comes in. It's a countertop electric composter that turns scraps to dirt in under 4 hours with just the push of a button. It's odor-free, pest-free, and best of all, mess-free. Now, Travell, I am not exactly what you would call clean, okay? I have a lot of clutter. I like to save things. I'm not dirty, I just have clutter. However, my best friend is obsessively clean. It's crazy, she's friends with me. And she came over and she saw my Lomi and she loved it so much that she got one and she's obsessed with it. So I just want to say, It's hitting all the standards.
We love that. Checking all the boxes.
Clean to borderline hoarder, you know?
Love that. If you want to start making a positive environmental impact or just make cleanup after dinner that much easier, Lomi is perfect for you too. Head to lomi.com/WAD and use the promo code WAD to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off when you head to lomi.com/WAD and use promo code WAD at checkout. Food waste is gross. Let Lomi save you a cold trip out to the garbage can.
What a Day is brought to you by Rocket Money. Do you know how many subscriptions you've signed up for and how much you're paying for all of them each and every month? Most people think all their streaming services add up to around $80 a month, but the reality is that many of them are actually paying more than double that. I shudder to think of all of the subscriptions I have. Truly shudder.
I would say, I don't think I want to know. But Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. All you have to do is find the subscription you don't want, press cancel, and Rocket Money will do the rest for you. So you can skip the long phone calls and endless back and forth emails with customer service. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving them an average of up to $720 a year.
Stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/whataday. That's rocketmoney.com/whataday. Maybe you'll find out that you were paying for an e-fax service, like I was until recently, and I must have been paying for years. Furious. If anybody wants to fax me, I still have a number for a few more weeks. So mad.
Now let's wrap up with some headlines.
Headlines.
Utah became the first state this year to pass a ban on gender-affirming healthcare for trans youth after Republican Governor Spencer Cox signed SB 16 into law over the weekend. Under the rule, anyone under 18 diagnosed with gender dysphoria after the legislation's effective date in May will not be allowed to access hormone therapy or puberty blockers, and all trans youth will be banned from getting gender-affirming surgery. At least 18 other states are considering similar bills that target healthcare for trans kids. As a reminder, gender-affirming healthcare has been endorsed by the nation's leading medical organizations, including the American Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics. So it'd be great for, elected officials to stop acting like they're smarter than people who've literally studied this thing.
It's disgusting. I mean, these are anti-science people.
Yeah.
It's so disingenuous. It's so cruel. It's so bigoted. Utah, I wasn't really into you anyway, but it's definitely over between us now. Sorry to anybody from Utah. On Friday, a judge ordered the release of audio and video recordings from the night Paul Pelosi, then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, was violently attacked in their San Francisco home. Footage from a police body camera shows Paul Pelosi, who was home alone, trying to wrestle a hammer away from David DePape just moments before DePape is seen lunging toward him. DePape, who faces numerous state and federal charges, later called a local TV station from his jail cell. He reportedly told the station he, quote, should have come better prepared on the day of the attack and suggested that he had other people he wanted to target.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel today following an eruption of violence between Israelis and Palestinians. It's part of a 3-day visit to the Middle East that was planned before the current tensions began. Late last week, we told you that Israeli forces carried out a deadly raid in the occupied West Bank. On Friday, a Palestinian gunman killed 7 people outside a synagogue in Jerusalem. Both attacks were some of the worst outbreaks of violence those areas have seen in years. Blinken plans to meet separately with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas.
Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin has spoken out publicly for the first time since he collapsed on the field earlier this month. Hamlin was hospitalized on January 2nd after a hard tackle put him into cardiac arrest during a game against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's been in recovery ever since and has mostly laid low since he was discharged from a Buffalo hospital nearly 3 weeks ago. In a video posted to his Instagram account on Saturday, Hamlin said he wanted to wait until his teammates finished their season before speaking on camera. He went on to thank the doctors and on-field staff who saved his life, as well as his friends, family, and fans for their support. The 24-year-old did not appear to show any difficulty speaking during the video, and his doctors have previously said that he did not appear to suffer from any neurological impairment since the incident.
Our next story might make you stick out your tongue and say, ah! Federal agents uncovered a massive scheme at 3 South Florida nursing schools last week that revealed thousands of practicing nurses may have fake degrees. In what was dubbed Operation Nightingale, the Justice Department found that between 2016 and 2021, a well-organized crime ring sold more than 7,600 fake nursing diplomas to the value of over $100 million. The bogus diplomas didn't get aspiring nurses out of taking the National Nursing Board exam, but it did let them bypass the requirements to take the test. The Justice Department has charged more than 24 people for their roles in the massive scheme, and each of those defendants could face up to 20 years in prison. But there will not truly be justice in healthcare until they stop judging adults who want to take the free lollipop too. Because sometimes I have a sweet tooth that I need to, solve as well.
We all have our secrets. Some people are not real nurses. I like lollipops. Romeo and Juliet, Bonnie and Clyde, Good Morning America's Amy Robach and TJ Holmes. All couples throughout history that made us say, love is real. And also, maybe they shouldn't have done it like that, but who am I to judge? The camera-crossed lovers formally made their exit as co-hosts of ABC's GMA3, the afternoon edition of Good Morning America, following an internal investigation that began after reports of Holmes and Robach's extramarital relationship surfaced in early December. The network announced the co-anchor's departure in a statement Friday, implying the decision was agreed upon by all parties. Hours after ABC's statement, the pair were seen together in Los Angeles, holding hands and embracing. Like the old saying goes, when two conventionally attractive people we learned about from television get to kiss each other in public, we all win.
You know what? I saw the photos. They seem so, happy to have this moment behind them. I look forward to the reality TV show.
I do too. I can't wait for it. Someone get the rights immediately. Also, while Good Morning America is at it, maybe they should change the name of GMA3 if it's in the afternoon. Why would you call it Good Morning America 3? It's the afternoon.
And those are the headlines. That's all for today. If you like the show, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, procure a nursing degree from sheer will, and tell your friends to listen.
And if you are into reading and not just between the lines of co-anchors with incredible chemistry, like me, What a Day is also a nightly newsletter. Check it out and subscribe at crooked.com/subscribe. I'm Josie Duffy Rice.
I'm Tre'vell Anderson. And adults deserve Dr. Candy too.
Also, maybe I'm just jealous that Amy and TJ are showing us up as co-hosts with chemistry,
We've got some work to do, Josie. What drama are we going to get into?
We have some homes to wreck, apparently. I didn't know that was part of the job.
What a Day is a production of Crooked Media. It's recorded and mixed by Bill Lance. Jazzy Marine and Raven Yamamoto are our associate producers. Our head writer is Jossie Kaufman, and our executive producer is Lita Martinez. Our theme music is by Colin Gilliard and Kashaka.